What's up, YouTube? It's your boy JP's on the keys, and it's too easy. And I just wanted to say something before we even got into this video. I just want to talk for a little bit about this whole situation with, the virus. So I'll probably leave a timestamp if you want to skip this whole rant that I have about the virus. But if you just want to see the reaction, I'll leave a timestamp somewhere and you can just skip to that. But now I have to talk about this because it's not going to get better because people are miseducating and misinforming people and like us as humans, like us, like especially Americans. Like we've been so spoiled, we've been so comfortable to the point where we've never had something so great that we've had to stay home. Like we've never had something so great as in our generation that shut down the whole country, that just all infrastructure is stopping and everything is just grinding to a halt. And the worst part is it's not even the disease, it's the people who are spreading misinformation, it's the people who are exploiting fear, it's the people who are fear mongering, it's the people who are crazy conspiracy theorists that's just spreading these conspiracy theories all over the world that don't have any substance. Now they're talking about the military tanks. There are tanks in there for martial law. Why would, if they wanted to do martial law, don't you think they would have done it by now? Why would they wait so long? You gotta think, talking about, oh, the government is trying to keep us in, they're trying to do, then why would they shut down, why would they purposely shut down jobs if employees keep the CEO's pockets lined up? If employees are the backbone of the country, why would they purposely shut down? They're trying to shut down. What for? What? You're trying to keep us in our homes. You're trying to keep us locked up in cages. You've been locked up in the cage, bro. You can't go. You can't freely go wherever you want. You can't do that. You have to get a passport to go outside the country. You have to get a driver's license. You have to be licensed to operate a vehicle. You have to be licensed to own a business. You have to be licensed to practice medicine. You got to be, you can't just go, you can't just freelance everything. And the thing that is the worst is people who believe these Facebook articles, people who are people on YouTube who claim they're the next Dr. Sebi or something, and they got the newest natural remedy when you don't even have a garden in your house. You don't even know how to grow a garden, but you're talking about natural remedies. Talking about, oh, all you got to do is sprinkle some such and such an oil in this and such and such. You got that on somebody's YouTube, and now you're trying to spread it. How do you know how to treat the virus? You've never even seen it before in your life. You've never seen it. You've never seen it. And people talking about, oh, it's the flu. We get the flu every year. It can't be that big of a deal over the flu. When it's literally a flu season, that means it comes every year, and we have a vaccine for it. So what's the point? Most of these people who are spreading these rumors, they're not doctors, they're not medical students, they're not qualified to do anything. They're not qualified to tell people, and people are so gullible, people are so scared because their whole world is crashing down. They can't do whatever they want. Oh my God, I gotta stay home all day. Oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm stuck in the house. I gotta stay home all day. And it's a big problem. And now they'll just believe anything you tell them. Now it's because it's people going around saying that, oh, such and such, the military tanks are coming in at this, and you can't leave your house when that's a big lie. Like everyone's just spreading lies and misinformation, and that's the worst thing. And then the thing that's even worse than that is the people who are just disregard public health. The people that they still feel the need to go out in public gatherings, have parties, more than 10 people. Like this is a global pandemic, and you're treating this like this is just like the sniffles or something. Like this is bro. Like this is better than our advance. This is more than even modern medicine can really fathom, because we don't know what's going on. We really don't know. This isn't like the 1300s where people died from scurvy, or people died from like I don't even know, people died from like the Black Death, and like the life expectancy was like 35. Like, this is 2020. Like, people are, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is new. These are new times, bro. And just like, people are not handling it the way they should. They're really not. Like, people just stay home. Because you can think about it. People are walking around wearing gloves. Yeah, you're touching everything you're touching everything in your day with the same pair of gloves. You go out, you touch the door handle, got the same pair of gloves. You go out, touch your steering wheel, got the same pair of gloves. Oh, you touch the faucet and you sink, you got the same pair of gloves on. And then you touch the mask you have on with the gloves, with the germs on it. So you breathing in the germs right in your face. That's stupid. Like, people just haven't handled this the right way. Like, I don't know if I'm just being naive, if I'm just seeing seeing everything. People are not taking this as seriously as they should. But that's all I gotta say. We're gonna do a reaction to World War I, Oversimplified Part 1 and 2. So without further ado, bars. Let's get to it.
The world of 1914, a time of modern technology, culture, and fashion. Truly the height of civilization. Let's have a war. Everyone knew a big war was coming. France wanted some stuff back that Germany had taken from it. Germany wanted to take more of everyone's stuff, and they were building a big sexy navy that was making the British uncomfortable. These two empires thought they were really cool, but lots of different people who lived there didn't think it was so cool. And some of them had even been declaring independence with help from Russia. Everyone was talking about each other behind each other's backs, throwing the fact that military technology had...
I'm mad they put K next to Spain. Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Come a long way since the last major war, and suddenly everyone was pretty eager to beat each other up. In this area of Austria-Hungary lived some Serbs and Bosnians who hated living in Austria-Hungary. So the Austro-Hungarian Archduke Franz Ferdinand goes there for a nice drive in an open-top car with his car's route published in advance. And that went just about as well as you'd expect.
What? They published his what? You just opening up the door for somebody to kill you.
Assassins were waiting for him along the way and threw bombs at his car, but they missed and blew up some officers behind him instead. So the Archduke goes into hiding, leaves Sarajevo, and the whole war never happens. Except no, the Archduke doesn't leave, but instead goes back out in the open-top car to visit the injured officers in hospital. The driver takes a wrong turn and by sheer coincidence gets stuck beside one of the failed assassins, who shoots him. Austria-Hungary is understandably pissed about all this, and they think the Serbian government had something to do with it, which they might have. So they go to their ally Germany and say, "Hey Germany, we're going to declare war on Serbia," and Germany is all for that. So Austria-Hungary send a big list of impossible demands to Serbia, and when Serbia refuses, they declare war. Austria-Hungary and Germany are friends, and Serbia is protected by Russia, who's friends with France, so they all declare war on each other. Montenegro joins in too. France and Britain also have a kind of alliance, so when France says, "Hey Britain, you got my back?" Britain is like, maybe. And then they decide to stay out of it, which is great for Germany, because Germany has a plan. They know that Russia is so big and clumsy that it will take them a while to get ready for war. So with this guy in charge, Germany will send all its troops into France at lightning speed while Russia's getting ready, defeat France, then move all the troops to Russia and defeat Russia, and then we all speak German and eat Pfefferpottast every day. Just...
Well, like, these plans are crazy. It's just like all these friends are friends with who and friends with that. It's just all these like secret alliances. It's just like, it's crazy to think that all these countries are like which country is in cahoots with what country. You don't even know who the allies is for real. You know what I'm saying? They'll tell you who the allies are. They'll tell you who they are, but you really don't know. United States might not mess with North Korea. I mean, might not mess with Japan. They might not be cool with Japan. For real. United States and Russia are very good allies, as evidenced by this last election. They're very good allies.
Just one problem. France has loads of forts and defenses along its German border, and Germany can't waste any time fighting them, so Germany decides to go around them, through Belgium. Belgium is neutral, but Germany wants to march 750,000 troops through it to get around France's defenses. They're hoping Belgium will just kind of sit down and shut up, but they don't. They fight back. And they're pretty good too, so they slow the Germans down. What's worse is that Britain shows up, and they're pretty pissed that Germany's invading neutral countries. So now Britain declares war on Germany. So Germany push on through Belgium and commit some atrocities along the way. They also wear spikes and sometimes skulls on their uniform. So if you're trying to not look like the bad guys, good job. The Allies have a propaganda extravaganza, and this starts having an influence around the world, notably in America. The US President Woodrow Wilson sees himself as a bit of a Jesus figure, and spends most of the war trying to get everyone to just hug it out. But there's also a large population of ethnic Germans living in the United States, and when the war first broke out, they were like, yay Germany! But now that they're committing atrocities in Belgium, they're less enthusiastic. Let's play Spot the French Soldier. Did you see him? Easy, right? He's wearing a bright blue uniform with red trousers. And do you know who else spotted him easily too? The Germans. So when the French were slowly marching in columns through the countryside, the Germans easily tore them to shreds with their giant guns. All the nations involved in this war went in with an old school war mentality, and all of them had to update their uniforms and tactics a lot during the Great War. Because this war was going to be like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Russia's ready for war, and way earlier than expected. Hey Austria-Hungary, can you get on top of that? Oh yeah, sure, we've got this. Nope. So Germany has to send some troops back to the east to defend against the Russians. The chief of staff of the Austro-Hungarian army is this guy, and although he is handsome, he turns out not to be the best military strategist. Austria-Hungary constantly ignores Germany's advice, and then comes running back to Germany whenever they get in trouble. Austria-Hungary even gets its ass kicked by tiny Serbia, who repels all their invasion attempts at the start of the war. It's better news for Germany in the north though, where they almost completely wipe out the Russian Second Army. Back on the Western Front, the Germans continue advancing and are in sight of Paris. At this point, anyone would be forgiven for thinking the Germans were going to get that quick victory after all, but then things start to go wrong. The French commander-in-chief knew something had to be done, and he ordered his armies to stop retreating. In the resulting battle, a gap opened up in the German lines. If a gap opens up, the enemy can use it to flank you from the side and behind, so the German armies have to retreat. The Allies launch a counterattack, so the Germans dig into defensive positions. The Allies do the same. Then both sides move north, trying to outflank each other along the way. When they reach the sea, they're in a stalemate with trench systems running the whole way from the coast to Switzerland, the beginning of trench warfare on the Western Front. Here's how trench warfare works. Two opposing lines of trenches with no man's land in between. One side would pummel the other with hundreds of thousands of artillery shells, sometimes for days at a time. This had a huge psychological effect on the soldiers, leaving many shell-shocked. Then, the attacking troops would leave their trenches and rush across no man's land, a muddy wet mass of shell craters and barbed wire. The defending trench would unleash machine gun fire on the attackers, inflicting thousands of casualties. The attackers would send wave after wave until either they gave up or the opposing trench was finally overrun. There would be months of fighting and the deaths of thousands in order to gain a few meters or kilometers of land. Living in the trenches was hard work too. Corpses, mud that could swallow you whole, pools of poisonous water, rats, disease, the smell. It's insane that millions of soldiers put up with these conditions, and commanders ordered them to do so for years.
Crazy though. Imagine living in a trench for days at a time. You're in a hole in the ground. Then you got soldiers. You got food that's probably spoiled down there. You already know spoiled food, maggots, mice, rats, bugs, and you know mice, rats, bugs carry disease. And the diseases back then, like the cholera and the typhus, the typhoid fever, and the dysentery and all that, like all those diseases that were terrible, that, you know what I'm saying, that back then that you couldn't recover from because medicine was not advanced back then. That's crazy though. Just life in like the war in like the early 1900s was ridiculous. Like just what they had to go through. But let's just get to part two.
Sides stuck in a hard stalemate. They knew this war wasn't going to be about taking territory, but about simply wearing each other down. The Allies had plenty of men to expend from its overseas dominions, and the British also started a naval blockade, so Germany couldn't import stuff, like food. Neither side really wanted a long, grueling war though, so they both thought of ways to break the deadlock on the Western Front. Idea number one, new frontiers.
But that's crazy. But you gotta really think the possibility of a world war, even the people that are not even involved will get affected. Because now You already said you got countries creating blockades, so now you can't get food into your country. That also applies for food and supplies. That's for civilians, not just soldiers. So you got mothers and children that are starving because of the decisions made by another country. Now that you have that in mind, just think about the catastrophe if there was to be another world war. Because you gotta think, countries could shut off trade routes, and then, boom, like whole economies will be destroyed. Like if like in the U.S., if truck drivers went out of business, the U.S. would collapse, because everything that we've had has been in a tractor trailer. This mic was in a tractor trailer. This mouse was in a tractor trailer. My hoodie was in a tractor trailer. This cup was in a tractor trailer. This phone was in a tractor trailer. Like the webcam that I'm recording on was in a tractor trailer. Everything, you know what I'm saying? Like, just certain industries would be shut down, and just the economy would collapse so hard that people wouldn't know what to do.
When the friends were Italy and Japan. Japan was busy building itself an empire, so it was more than happy to take away German islands and colonies in East Asia. Italy actually had an alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary before the war, but after some tense relations, and then the Allies promising to give them some of Austria-Hungary's stuff, they switched sides. Italy opened up a front in the mountains here, but like everyone else, they were stuck in stalemate for most of the war. The Central Powers' new friend was a struggling empire in the Middle East. The Ottomans were divided on whether to actually join the war or not, since they had been exhausted by the recent Balkan Wars. Some of the politicians who did want to join went off on their own and fired some shells at Russia, and then came back and said, "Whoops, looks like we're at war now." The Ottoman entry into the war was of particular concern to the British, since the Middle East was full of oil, and Britain wanted all of that oil. First, the Ottomans tried to attack Russia in the Caucasus Mountains, but they weren't prepared for the cold, and many of them froze to death. Then they crossed miles of desert to take the Suez Canal from the British, but that failed too. Then the Allies tried to take the Dardanelles at Gallipoli in a long and hard trench warfare campaign, but that also failed. The Ottomans blamed their initial losses on the ethnic Armenians living within Ottoman territory, and the resulting Armenian genocide led to the deaths of 1.5 million people. Then the Germans sent spies into Afghanistan to try to convince the Arab tribes there to rise up in jihad against the British and attack India. But that plan failed, partly because the spies got bored, brewed their own alcohol, and got drunk, which is a bad thing to do in Afghanistan. All these new frontiers hadn't done much to change the war. Aware that the Allies had more men and supplies than them, the Germans knew they had to do something to break the stalemate. Before the war, there was a big conference that set out the rules of modern warfare. No chemical weapons, no killing civilians. Basically, don't be jerks. The Germans held a meeting and decided to be jerks. Zeppelin air raids commenced over British cities. They also started attacking the Allied trenches with chlorine gas, and they used submarines to sink civilian ships. One such civilian ship was the Lusitania.
The Germans have always been savages from the jump. The Germans have always been the savages. Like, if you're talking 20th century war, like, the Germans they've always been the ones that didn't care. Like, you're burning. I think, and that was the only reason that the U.S. got involved, because the Germany sunk the Lusitania. They sunk. That's a U.S. civilian ship. That's the only reason that the U.S. was gonna get that. That's how the U.S. got involved in the war. I know that. Like, they sunk the ship. Like, because they thought either did on accident or on purpose. They sunk the ship. They dropping bombs on cities, affecting civilians. But that's how you win war. You don't win war being nice.
Titania, which had 159 Americans on board when it was sunk, further swaying U.S. opinion against the Germans. Not to be completely unfair to the Germans, the Allies also engaged in chemical warfare soon after, and they had been hiding anti-submarine weapons on their civilian ships, which let the Germans justify their attacks. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary still hadn't dealt with Serbia, so the Central Powers enlisted some help. Bulgaria wished it was bigger and was still bitter about losing the Second Balkan War. The Central Powers promised to make all of Bulgaria's wildest dreams come true if they helped, so they signed on, and together they knocked out Serbia. The Serbian troops retreated through Albania, which was neutral but had some ties to Austria-Hungary. So Austria-Hungary entered Albania in a friendly invasion to chase down the Serbians, many of whom escaped by sea. It's 1916.
Friendly invasion. Never heard those two words used in the same sentence ever.
And a lot is happening. As if they didn't have enough enemies already, Germany added one more to the list. Portugal had been getting a bit chummy with the Allies behind the scenes, and Germany didn't like that one bit. Around the same time, the only sea battle of the war happened. Both sides had a new powerful class of battleships called dreadnoughts, but they were so expensive to build that neither side wanted to risk losing them in a battle, so they kept them in port, except for one time when they had a big fight and a bunch of them got damaged, so they didn't try that again. The UK started conscripting men to the army, so they had plenty of reserves, which is just as well because the Western Front was about to get brutal. The longest and one of the bloodiest battles of the war started when the Germans launched an attack around the French city of Verdun. The French defended it desperately, leading to hundreds of thousands of casualties. Under pressure, the French called on its allies to do something to draw the Germans' attention away, so the British started their own long and brutal fight, the Battle of the Somme, with 60,000 British casualties on just the first day. It was also here that the British...
60,000 people, wow. Like, just imagine that, bro. Like, you're walking out onto the war with some guy you've known in the army for years, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's not there anymore, and now you got 60,000 people. Holy, wow, bro. That's a lot of, that's in one day, bro. That's a lot of people. Holy crap. I know that this war killed 20 million people. 20 million people died in this war. World War II killed over 60 million people. That's 80 million deaths in 2 wars. Holy, yo, that's,
First used one crazy brand new piece of sci-fi technology.
Tanks.
The Russians had been getting pushed back further and further into their own territory, but in response to the French call for help, they began a huge offensive, and did really well until they ran out of supplies and got stuck. Seeing how well the Russians had been doing, Romania decided now would be a great time to jump in and win the war, and then they got pounded. The Greeks were fighting amongst themselves about whether to join the war or not. The king liked the Central Powers, while the Prime Minister wanted to join the Allies. After a brief national schism, during which the country split into two, the king finally abdicated and the country reunited. With Allied help, they began a new offensive. In the Middle East, Russia was pushing into Ottoman territory from the north. The British had also made a landing in Mesopotamia to protect Persia's oil fields, and they had also sent a small army up the Tigris River to try to take Baghdad. But the army got sieged in the town of Kut along the way. It was launched from the south with all-out desert warfare. The offensive was aided by one famous British officer, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, who helped lead the Arab tribes in a revolt that wreaked havoc on the Ottoman supply lines. By the time 1917 rolled around, everyone was exhausted. There were mutinies in the French army, the German populace was starving, and the war had drained all of Russia's supplies. There was no clear winner, and it was still anyone's war. The only question now was, who was going to break first? And the answer was Russia. Tired of not eating, and mad that a crazy magic homeless guy was calling some of the shots, there was an uprising in Petrograd complete with riots and strikes. The riots turned into a full-scale revolution, and a new government overthrew the Tsar. Then a few months later, the Bolsheviks overthrew the new government, and they pulled Russia out of the war.
Yo, that's so crazy how like people can rise up and just overthrow a government. Like, just think about how crazy you overthrow a government. Like a government, bro. Not a school principal, not a mayor, not a governor. The whole government. You just overthrow that thing. You just said, nah. Like, bro, that's boss though. That's some boss stuff though. I'm not gonna lie. That's crazy.
This was great news for Germany, who now only had to focus on the Western Front. But there was still one problem. The pesky United States of America was looking increasingly like it was going to join the war. America had been selling supplies to the Allies throughout the war and was getting super rich off the back of it, meaning it was in fantastic shape and was...
Of course, American capitalism, yay! Of course, American capitalism never fails. You're saying this all about the dollar, never fails.
Dangerous to the Germans. So Germany sent a telegram to Mexico saying, wouldn't it be crazy cool if you guys attacked America? But the British intercepted the message, showed it to the Americans, and that was the final straw. American troops began shipping out to Europe. This was terrible news for Germany, and they knew their only hope now was to force France and the UK to surrender before the fresh American troops arrived. It was now or never, so they started one final attack. They converged their troops and hit hard at the Somme and pushed the Allies back. They hit a second time further north, then again and again. With each hit, the Germans were spending more and more resources, while the Allies were getting better and better at repelling their attacks. By the fifth punch, the Allies held the line and even pushed back. With American troops now arriving in larger numbers, the Allies launched a counterattack, and that was it. The Central Powers were being pushed back on all fronts. Bulgaria collapsed first, followed by the Ottoman Empire, then Austria-Hungary, and finally on November 11, 1918, at 11 o'clock, Germany surrendered. At the peace treaty, Germany was forced to reduce its military, accept war guilt, and pay the bill for the war. After indescribable suffering and millions dead, the world learnt its lesson and never had such an awful war again.
Yeah, right.
For about 20 years.
Oh, like it's just fun learning about like the past, because like you can use the past to like shape how you build in the future. You know what I'm saying? And now you can use this situation kind of applies to what we're going through now, like as a whole, not just as a country, like me as American, just as a world, like as a planet, as a world, as a galaxy, whatever you want to call it. Like this is just worldwide calamity. Like nobody really knows what's going on with this situation. Nobody knows what's going on with the thing, with the virus. Like it's just everybody's just standing on eggshells, just waiting for everything. Like it's to me, it's really like concerning. It's concerning to me, like just knowing like what is gonna, I don't even know what's gonna, like just not knowing what's gonna happen is just concerning. You know what I'm saying? Like uncertainties, it sucks when you don't know what's going on. That's the worst feeling, when you don't know what's going on. It's just like, I feel like the governments of not just the United States, of every country, is not really giving it to us how they should be doing. They're not spilling all the beans. I feel like as citizens, we should know. We should be in the know. You know what I'm saying? We should be in the know to an extent. I'm not saying just, hey, tell us everything. I mean, that would be nice, but you know that's not. You know that will never happen. But geez, like, can you at least try to ease some of the public tension? Because people are scared. Everybody's scared, bro. Everybody's scared. Nobody knows what's gonna happen. You won't even know if you have it. You don't even know if you'll have the virus for 2 weeks. Like the symptoms could be dormant for like 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you start coughing. Like it can live on your clothes for 5 days. It can live on your shoes for up to 10 days. It can live on you for a couple. Like you don't even know. And apparently they say you can't take ibuprofen with it because it reacts very negatively to ibuprofen, and it can cause like some type of reaction that is deadly. Like we don't even know. Like it's more than a flu. Like based on the things, the videos that I've seen from doctors and scientists, not politicians, not some guy off YouTube that just thinks he knows what he's talking about because he's read a couple of articles. We're talking about doctors, scientists, neurologists, like people who are people in the medical and scientific field. They're saying that this is more like a severe type of pneumonia, which is pneumonia is a deadly disease. So we have to take this with caution. Like we have to really take this into account. Like when they say stay home, stay home. Stay home. And if you are an essential worker, I feel for you, bro. I feel for you, bro. If you're an essential worker, I feel for you. If you're a healthcare worker, thank you so much for everything you're doing to try to calm this situation. But we just have to see what's going to happen. But until then, thank you again. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Don't forget to share a video wherever you share videos at. Also, don't forget to turn on our post notifications that you don't miss an upload. Thank you again. Be safe. Stay on the grind. Definitely be safe. But I'm out. Peace.